Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and following on from my video yesterday on the expected news on the Northern Ireland Protocol this week, tomorrow it's going to be now. In this video I'd like to discuss the political calculations involved in suspending the protocol, as the British government have threatened to do and engage in a trade war with the EU. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So I see people on social media, people in the know, noting that the government have asked officials to work out how we can engage with a trade war with the EU. Sounds like madness, doesn't it? Of course it is. We can't win with someone with a much larger market than us. But the suggestion is that the government believe that they will find a trade war less costly than the current trade deal. So it's not that the government are thinking, oh yeah, we can absolutely gain from a trade deal. It's purely comparatively. Now, this has come from a range of people that I am satisfied have their fingers on the pulse. Not verified as such. The government have not made a public statement that they want a trade war with the EU. But let's go with the notion that this is what is happening. Though I will just say first that although the government haven't actually said that they want a trade war, they have dismissed the EU's proposals for improvements out of hand. The EU tomorrow are presenting their proposals. The government several days ago said, no, we're not interested. You know, they've now set themselves on a course for this trade war. The first thing to note is that if this is the government's plan, and I accept that there is still this possibility that all they want to do is raise the rhetoric, kick the can down the road and keep doing this ad infinitum. But if it is the government's plan, it would represent a view that not only a complete no deal would have been better than their deal, but an all-out trade war would be preferable even. Naturally, this isn't true, economically at any rate, so it must be that they believe it's politically true. And as I discussed in the last video, the issue for Boris Johnson is that in order to maintain support in the Conservative Party, he has to see the Northern Ireland Protocol dropped. To begin with, the way he got his power and the way he could hold on to his power was by exiting the EU. He had to leave the EU. He couldn't do it with the previous Parliament, so he had to have the general election, which is why it's madness he was given the general election. He'd have been long gone by now if he couldn't get that general election. But he had that and he left the EU. But that's not the end of it, because he still has demands on him. So it's like, right, now you've left the EU, brilliant. We're very happy with you now, Boris. But now what we need you to do is to get out of the withdrawal agreement. The hardline Brexiteers in his party seem to be happy with the trade barriers between Britain and the EU. Obviously doesn't affect them too badly. But they're not at all happy with the barriers between Britain and Northern Ireland, even though they agreed to them, voted for them, and publicly campaigned for them. So this isn't a case of whether the UK can survive a trade war with the EU. It's about whether Boris Johnson can. Remember that Boris Johnson has no political ideology whatsoever. He doesn't care about whether the UK was in the EU or not. He doesn't care about whether Northern Ireland is in the UK or not. He doesn't care about trading arrangements anywhere. All he cares about is he Prime Minister, and is he still going to be Prime Minister next week? He entered politics specifically to become Prime Minister. That was it. That was all there was to it. He adopted any position deemed necessary to get him there and will adopt any position necessary to keep him there. He will change his policies completely around in the space of a day if that's what it takes to maintain power. We have seen this. Right now, there are pressures on him to comply with the protocol, and there are pressures on him to dispense with it. What he eventually does will come down to which pressure he feels the most keenly. Now, I've said before, the EU are actually very good at engaging in trade wars. It's not just that the EU is way bigger than the UK. The EU are extremely good at trade wars. They may actually be the best place of all the world's economic giants to do so. Put simply, the EU apply tariffs on goods that are politically sensitive. So the way it would work in a trade war with the UK is they would follow this process. What they wouldn't do is just go, oh, let's just slap some tariffs on random things. No. First, they would identify goods that are exported to the EU, obviously no point in targeting goods that aren't exported to the EU in sufficient quantities, so they'd get a list of all the goods exported to the EU in suitable quantities. But then what they wouldn't just target the ones where our overall economy loses out the most. There's no point in that. Second, what they would do is they narrow it down to goods that contribute significantly to the economy of the constituencies of influential Conservative MPs. They've done the same in America most recently when they put tariffs on Harley Davidson. That's not, as a slice of the American economy, that's not anything great. But they were produced in the region of influential Republicans at the time. This was under Trump. So they do the same thing in this country. It might even be that some influential MPs have close contacts who own these businesses. Maybe they own them themselves. The EU will hit those. It's what they do. It's not even like you can do the same back to them either. It's not like they have this cunning plan and no one else is cottoning onto it. Because like with the UK, it's easy. You target Boris Johnson, Priti Patel, Rishi Sunak, Steve Baker, Peter Bone, Ian Duncan Smith. A handful of Tory MPs that wield a huge amount of influence amongst the parliamentary party. How do you do that to the EU? You can't. You can't possibly come up with a small list of names to target because there's too many people involved around the levers of power. But that's in general terms. When it comes to the UK specifically, we also can't afford to stifle EU imports. The idea that we'll start raising massive tariffs and trading barriers on EU imports is ridiculous. The reason we haven't implemented customs controls on EU goods passing into Britain is because we are desperately short of essential items. Without that system of checks and controls, how on earth do we even begin to have a trade war? It will all be one-sided. You know, when we're talking about can Boris Johnson survive a trade war, what he means is can Boris Johnson survive tariffs going on a load of UK goods? We won't really be able to retaliate back very much. And this is where the calculation can go badly wrong. What end would Boris Johnson see for the process? Despite what these Brexit charlatans claim, there's no way of having two customs areas without a customs border in between. That we are currently doing this is dead against international rules. It also opens up our market to rampant smuggling. The EU can't possibly survive if it allows the same open access to the single market. There's no backing down for them. And this isn't some macho rubbish about who has the strongest will. You know, the EU cannot back down. Not won't, cannot. Literally cannot. Without the single market, they become the Daily Mail reader's wet dream. They collapse. It's gone. So they obviously are not going to agree to their own self-destruction. Yes, I know we did, but not everywhere is as dumb as we are. Now, a trade war would be so chaotic that I certainly can't claim to know how things are going to pan out. But what we can say is this. First of all, if Boris Johnson triggers this trade war, it will be because he believes it's impossible for him to remain as Prime Minister if he doesn't. He knows it's going to be deeply damaging. He knows he's going to lose control over the process. So he has to believe that there are forces in his party, the ERG, that are putting massive pressure on him to suspend the protocol and do it quickly. You know, the fact that he hasn't done it yet means that they're still giving him time. But I don't know how much time. I don't know how much pressure they're putting on him, and I don't know how urgently they want him to act. It is possible that they're happy for him to slowly move towards suspension, and therefore we may still be talking about this in months' time. You know, 6 months' time, a year's time. But it's equally possible that they've told him that it must be gone by the end of the year, or he will be. I don't know. What I do know is that the government have threatened suspension for months. They said that the conditions for suspension had already been met in summer, but they still haven't done it. The second thing we know is that Johnson thinks he has an advantage in the fact that he is willing to break both domestic and international law quite blatantly, but he knows that the EU can't. The EU have to have more respect for the law than he does. So this trade war, for example, don't be fooled into thinking the EU will retaliate with everything they have, all guns blazing. No, they will be proportionate with their action. They have to be. Johnson will hope that this means he can afford the economic hit in the short term. He may also hope that faced with having no protocol in place at all, the EU will renegotiate a different arrangement. And yes, I know that there is no arrangement that will comply with international trading rules and keep the hardline Brexiteers happy. But it doesn't matter what the truth is with the government we have. All that matters is what they believe is possible. Boris Johnson is so detached from reality, but also so good at gaslighting the public that he might believe all sorts of impossible things. The third thing that I think we can safely say is that if Johnson does trigger this trade war, he will be happy enough that the United States won't do anything that worries him personally. I said in the previous video, I can't see him making that mistake. So if this happens, or when it happens, it's strongly believed it's going to be in case of when, not if, don't expect that much from the United States. I know there'll be people who'll be thinking, oh no, the United States will absolutely act. Will they? You know, I do put one qualifier on that statement. Johnson is so detached from reality that there does exist the possibility that the US would retaliate hard and that Johnson believes he can just smooth it out with his charm. It's possible that he could get the calculation wrong just because of the immediate pressure from the ERG. You know, it could work like this. Senior Conservatives tell him they've run out of patience. Suspend the protocol now, or at least the bits we don't like. I won't expect him to suspend the whole thing, just the bits he doesn't like. Or we'll be calling a challenge to your leadership. Now, if he thinks they have the numbers to topple him, he'll obviously suspend it, because if he doesn't, it's certain that he's out of a job very quickly. So it's a case of do this thing, you know, to stop the certainty of defeat and deal with the possibility of defeat. You know, so he'll choose to suspend and hope that he can deal with the fallout. Even if he is aware that his chances are small, it will at least give him time. That's possible. But the fourth thing that I think we can say for certain, I can't actually say certain because British politics seems to defy all logic at times, but if this trade war begins, I can only see it ending with Johnson's fall. See, consider that a trade war ends when both sides agree on something. You know, and sometimes it's possible to end a trade war without either side really losing face. If the issue at stake was something fairly esoteric anyway, most people didn't really understand what it was about. But the aims are the polar opposites here. So it's not possible for both sides to end it and save face. It ends either with the EU agreeing to drop the protocol and negotiate another agreement, which is impossible, or it ends with Boris Johnson re-implementing the protocol. The first would end the EU, so it's impossible. The second would end Boris Johnson, which is not impossible. Guess which one I think is the weaker of the two. Of course, Boris Johnson is unlikely to re-implement the protocol. The more likely scenario, I suppose, in that case, and obviously there'll be all sorts of ifs and buts that will have happened before then, is that the public just get fed up of him and the harm he is doing by never actually getting Brexit done. So then let's suppose something else. Let's suppose that the ERG are mounting pressure on Johnson to suspend the protocol or be deposed. But let us also suppose that Johnson knows he cannot win a trade war. Not that he'd be unlikely to, but he actually knows he can't. What then? Does he try and seize the initiative? Resign, claiming that he's done what he set out to do and now leaves the rest of the job to someone else, getting out on his own terms, so to speak? Don't think I see his ego accepting that possibility, especially about talking about wanting to be in power for a full decade. It is possible that the internal party pressure isn't actually all that great and that this could roll on for some time. Maybe you can string this rhetoric out for another half year or so with nothing ultimately happening. But there does remain a large number of well-informed people of the belief that suspension of the protocol is coming, not like this week or next week, but this year. But when, you know, can't do it now, surely. Coming up to winter with critical shortages, I'm wondering if they'll maybe wait until January when trade naturally calms down a bit. But I do have further thoughts related to general election strategy in another video tomorrow. Well, until then, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.